Oh, that's awesome. Hey, Philip, you just joined. A couple other people on. You joined just as my camera fell down. I have a kind of wonky setup. So, all right, we are straight up. We got a bunch of people dialing in as we speak. Welcome, welcome. All right. I am really, really glad to see you guys for a couple of reasons. Never know when there's nobody on, if that's because of a technology glitch or if life just got in the way. So I'm glad you guys are here. If this is your first Ask Me Anything, I do these a little bit differently. So I'm going to be on camera. I'm going to get really small in a second. I'm actually going to show my screen so you can kind of see the number of questions that we have. It is long. I believe, well, it was 12 the other day, but I think it's now at 20. The webinar is scheduled for an hour. So I'm going to talk fast and you're going to listen fast. But let's start with this. Drop in the Zoom chat if this is your first time on the webinar or if you've been here before. I recognize a couple of names, and that way I can get an idea of who is here. And then we're going to get started as you're chatting, as you're typing that in the chat. So for those of you that don't really know me well, my name is Jennifer Bleam. I am the Cybersecurity Sherpa. So I'm taking you from the bottom of the mountain where you're completely in overwhelm and spinning your wheels and you know where you want to get, which is the top of the mountain where you've got your solution stack figured out and your pricing figured out and you've closed 100% of your clients, you're closing your prospects, you are highly profitable, and you are the sought out expert when it comes to cybersecurity. That's a big claim. That's a big climb as well. So I'm the Sherpa. I'm going to give you some shortcuts to get there. And this is a very informational, as you can tell, kind of informal webinar. More people are going to be dialing in. A couple of you are saying it's your first time, so welcome. My fingers are crossed that my camera does not fall again. For those of you who were on right on time, you caught a glimpse of my camera pivoting and spinning out of control. So good stuff live. That's a joy of live webinars. So I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to check to make sure nobody is emailing me saying I can't get in. I don't have any of those emails. So I'm going to show my screen. And again, that way you can just kind of, you're going to see as we go along. These are the different questions that we have. Actually, can you type into the chat and confirm that you are indeed seeing a Trello board with a mountain in the background? That would be super, super helpful for me as opposed to my ugly Word doc, which is one of about 17 that I have open at the same time. So I'm going to jump in. Usually how I start these, and my eyes are getting old, so I'm going to actually increase the size of this screen. Usually what I talk about for the first 5 minutes are things like current events, hacks, RMM issues, opportunities for you, some good articles in the small business world, things that you need to know about. I am going to skip that today, although I'll probably weave a few things in as we're talking. And I'm going to skip that simply because of the volume of questions that I have. My list is growing. I may need to make this an hour-and-a-half webinar. I may need to make it twice a month, although that's then more time for you as well. So I don't love that. But anyway, let's jump in. I don't see Jasper or Jeremy on yet. If they hop on, I'm going to ask them to rephrase their question because I'm not clear what it is. Let me see if any of you are on and submitted questions. Okay, so David, let's start with yours because you're here. Best way to get the foot in the door selling cybersecurity. So I'm going to ask you to type into the chat, are we talking prospects? Are we talking clients? Because it's a little bit of a different beast, just depending what we're talking about. But in the meantime, I will do my best to answer this. Still getting over bronchitis from Christmas. So I've got my well, what is now cold coffee here that I'm going to be sipping to try to keep the cough down to a minimum. But David, are you talking, what's the best way to get get your foot in the door selling cybersecurity to clients or prospects? I'm going to start answering this as if it's prospects. And if I'm wrong, please redirect me by using the Zoom chat. So prospects, best way is to lead with a cybersecurity audit, assessment, vulnerability test, whatever. And the words do matter. There are differences in all of those things. I don't have time to get into that today. I do have a podcast I'm about to drop that talks about that very thing, where I bring in an expert. And there are some important differentiators between those types of things. And legally, there are some reasons you want to use the correct term, but you want to lead with that. That's your initial sale. If it's to a client, you may not want to charge for a vulnerability assessment. You will probably want to charge for a pen test because they're about $10,000 and up. But vulnerability assessment, if you have some automation tools that can do that, you probably don't want to charge a client. On the prospect side, maybe charge them. It's a personal preference. You'll get fewer sales, but they'll be higher quality. So to charge or not to charge, but that's how you want to lead in. And you'll get in, you'll do the vulnerability assessment, and then when you present the results, don't get too technical. You want to present these results as how it is, if this happened, how would it impact them? How would it impact their workflow, their ability to process payments, their ability to make money, their ability to confirm appointments if they're medical, so things of that nature. So that's your best way to get the foot in the door. If I had an MSP or I was launching an MSSP, I would probably do a massive cold calling campaign, hire someone for $15 an hour, maybe 12, go with 15, and literally just smile and dial and offer an independent third-party cybersecurity assessment. Something to that effect. So hopefully that helps. Shoot a follow-up question into the chat. I say that with a little bit of unease just because of the volume I've got. So let me look through, trying to match up and answer the ones. Oh, I think I moved the wrong one. Let's see. Yep, I did. I moved the wrong one. So that was David Burton's. Okay, I'm going to do this next one. What advice can you give for cold calling and pre-sales prep for a small business looking to grow? Okay, so David's not on yet. Cold calling. Okay, I could probably do a 30-minute seminar on cold calling. So I'm like mentally saying I have about 3 or 4 minutes to answer each question. So advice to give for cold calling: have a script, track your numbers, and understand that it is grueling. It is brutal work. There are people out there that are a little crazy who actually enjoy cold calling. So trying to find one of those is huge. And then smile and dial, track your numbers, understand that it is hard. It is wildly successful. It's actually how I built my first sales career, if you don't count the one door knocking as a teenager or elementary kid, selling gift wrap. But I did cold calls selling health insurance to small business owners, micro business owners who usually had one employee plus their family. And I would cold call for 12 hours every Monday and set about 12 appointments that I then worked Tuesday through Friday. First call closes, and I rinse and repeat that every week. So I've got lots of cold calling advice. So have a script, track your numbers, understand it's painful, play whatever games you have to do. How quickly can I get to my first no? How much money do I make every time I dial the phone? The tracking the numbers is important because it becomes a blur. And you may start to feel like I didn't make any progress today. But if you can go back and say, okay, I didn't make any progress because I dialed 40 people and I left 40 voicemails. Well, that will never lead to a sales call being set because all you did was leave voicemails. Now, on occasion, someone may call you back, but the reality is not often. So that would be my advice. Cold calling is hard. So I prefer for you to do calls to follow up on a marketing campaign. That would be better. So hopefully that helps. All right, Carlos, I did not organize these very well. Should have moved this to the bottom and then just coincidentally ran out of time to cover it. Okay. How vulnerable are we with our RMM and PSA tools? So, all right, let's talk about that one first. If we think like a bad guy for a second, and we use the old analogy, why do bank robbers rob banks? Does anybody know the answer to that age-old question? Yep, a couple of you are typing furiously. It's because that's where the money is. And so if we think like a bad guy for just a second, why would you want to penetrate an RMM vendor or a PSA vendor? Because that's where the money is. So how vulnerable are you? Listen, I am not a CISSP, but I just interviewed someone for my podcast this week, I think. So it'll drop in about a month. And he said, listen, any software tool has vulnerabilities. It just so happens that these are the foundations of your business. But you can do a lot by he talked about the foundational pieces. So making sure you have 2FA or multi-factor turned on, doing it. He didn't talk about doing an audit, but other people have talked about doing an audit. In other words, once a quarter, maybe once every 6 months, literally make a list of everybody in your company that has access to your various tools. In this case, we're talking about RMM PSA, and making sure that they still have it turned on, that it's working, etc. So are you any more vulnerable using, your RMM versus another tool? Maybe, maybe not, but you can't stop using the tools. And candidly, they all have vulnerabilities. So therefore, you have to do what you can do, which is your multi-factor, making sure you're not reusing passwords, doing all of the proper hygiene. So that's question number one. Should we stop using RDP as a solution? Well, I can tell you this, open RDP ports are one of the biggest sources of breaches. So certainly close those ports. As far as should we stop using it altogether, again, not my strongest suit. I would pull in some resources, colleagues, or post out to some Facebook groups, post out to my Facebook group. Shameless plug, if you're not already in there, search for MSP Sales Revolution or search for Jennifer Bleam, or just ping me and say, how do I get into your group? Post out there. I have a lot of vendors in that group that'd be happy to weigh in on that question. Which 2FA solution to use? There's quite a few that are good. I hear a lot of good things about Duo. Pick one. No solution is perfect. Pick it, deploy it, roll it out to 100% of your apps and 100% of your employees. I even know of MSPs that are going an additional step. It kind of falls into the MFA conversation, which is why I'm mentioning it, of actually putting a solution in place that confirms that when your end user, Richard, is calling you and saying, hey, I need you to make this change to my computer, that you actually confirm Richard's identity. And so that's necessary because of social engineering and things like that. So how do you know, how does your team know that when Richard calls in and asks you to make a change to his computer or the server or a configuration setting for the whole company, how do you know that Richard is the authorized person at the account? And how do you know that that's actually Richard you're talking to, or Richard that emailed you the request? So something else to think about. Okay, do me a favor, if you are still hearing me, drop something in the chat, because I have had some wonky internet issues and you guys are super quiet. So if all I'm doing is talking to myself, that's not a real good use of anybody's time. So if you can still hear me, I mean, you're still connected. So I kind of feel like if you're still connected, you're still hearing me, or you would have dropped off. But can someone type in the chat? Yes, we can hear you. Keep going. Nobody. So either everybody is multitasking. Okay, good. Awesome. There may be a delay too. So, okay, great. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Okay. Is it better to lead with a security assessment? This is for prospects, or lead with a more general network assessment? So here's my opinion. MSPs have been leading with network assessments, 9-point inspections, 12-point, 73-point, doesn't matter. Network inspections are kind of blasé, whereas cybersecurity assessments, or again, vulnerability assessments, much hotter, much sexier, much more top of mind. And they're especially helpful if you can pull in the whole GDPR or FINRA, or if there was a recent article, if you're focused on a vertical, if there was an article in their blog or their newsletter or their magazine that talked about cybersecurity being a high priority for 2020 or late 2019, that's a great lead in. I would lead with a security assessment. Okay, so I like quick and easy answers. Jason, awesome. Okay, average price range of cybersecurity services offered by MSPs. So this is going to be a broad range, and I'm going to explain why it's a broad range. It's a broad range because, number one, when you step back and you say, what are all the pieces I need to be including? Some of those you're already including in your managed services offering. Therefore, there's not a huge gap to bridge, because perhaps you already rolled out multi-factor, or you rolled out password managers, or maybe you rolled out a endpoint detection and response solution, and hopefully you adjusted your rates to already factor that in. So that's the one reason that this price range varies so much, is that every MSP has a different traditional stack, and so then when they add, there's a bigger or a smaller delta. The other reason that this is such a broad range is because what is required is a matter of opinion. And so some people want to put a compliance-related solution in place for 100% of their clients, because they are usually either medical or they're accepting credit cards, which means PCI is an issue, at least here in the States. And so therefore, some MSPs want some type of compliance-related services, maybe SOC as a service, with 100% of their clients. And so if they have to include that, that's a semi-expensive solution, and a SIM solution or SIEM solution is as well. So if you're including those, you'll be at the top of this range. So I am seeing anywhere from $30 per endpoint per month, all the way up to $100 per endpoint per month, just for the security piece. And that is typically bundled over top or added onto whatever your managed was. The other reason there's a range is a lot of you are underpricing your managed services. And so if you're under $80 per endpoint per month right now for a traditional managed service solution, I could really argue, under 100 or maybe even 125, that you're underpriced. That's assuming you're including automated patch management, unlimited, on-site, off-site, and a BDR. Okay, so I talk to a lot of IT companies that are doing all of that. BDR questionable for $55 per endpoint per month. I almost guarantee you your profitability stinks. And so cybersecurity then becomes, when you sell it correctly, what you're really doing is raising the price of your managed and adding on, and now the cumulative total is significant. And it's awesome, and it's a great way to sell. So big range, 30 to 100 per endpoint per month is what I'm seeing for just the cyber part. Okay. Best tools and pricing strategies. Awesome. So we just talked about pricing strategies. I guess one pricing strategy would be to eat the difference. Don't do that, please. I hear it a lot, but don't do it. Another one is really solid, beefy margins. That's the strategy I recommend, because the solutions you put in place today will not be enough next year. And so you want to have some extra margin in place, so that if some new problem comes up, like ransomware was new 5 years ago, and today it's commonplace, but I don't know what's coming in April. I'm not a hacker, but something is coming. Something is going to be new vulnerability, new attack, new whatever. And then a month or 2 or 6 later, there will be a solution that you may feel 100% of your clients need. And so when you leave a little bit of wiggle room, you can adopt the $1.50 per endpoint solution, include it it'll erode your margins a little bit, but because you made them solid to start with, it gives you that flexibility without having to go back to all of your client base and sell them again on why they need another solution, and you raise their rates incrementally, and very quickly your clients get grumpy. So that's my strategy. Okay, best tools to consider. Michael, I don't know if you're on, if you listen to this replay or if this applies to anybody that are on right now. I actually have a whole training on how to build the stack. I can't recall how long it is, but I want to say it's about 30-minute video, and it lines up with the NIST framework. And the concept is you want layers of security. So the first layer is going to be your analysis layer. Forgive me, I can't think of what NIST calls it, but it is the equivalent of the vulnerability assessment. It actually might be assess. If anybody knows NIST offhand, you can type that in the chat. But you want to determine what are the threats and what are the pieces of the company that are valuable to the client. So this would be similar to your BDR conversation when you used to add on BDR. So restore point objective, restore time objective, what kind of data is important to you? Where does that data live? And so that's the first step. And then the next layer would be your protect. So that's your brick wall. You are putting as many pieces of the brick wall in place as you can. And so that's things like employee education. Let's keep them from clicking things. Endpoint detection and response. Let's keep things from even getting to the user so they can't click it. Things like DNS filtering. And so you're going to have a lot in this protect. You know, you're stopping people from even entering your castle. It's that brick wall and the moat and the drawbridge around the castle. You're going to have a lot of pieces in there. But then you need to say, okay, what happens if they get through? I mean, I've got all these pieces in place, but these hackers are good. These vulnerabilities happen. So now what? Well, that's where you want to have a threat hunting tool or a SIEM in place. What that is doing is looking for the bad guy that snuck behind your defenses, found a kink in your brick wall, and they're now tiptoeing around your castle doing whatever they want, unless you've got motion sensors going off saying, hey, wait a second, bad guy just got in. So that's your detection phase. And so that's high level, but that's how you need to think. How many layers can I reasonably put in place to stop the types of threats that are reasonably going to get through or that my clients reasonably need to be protected against? So if you've got more questions on that, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to share that training with you. It's something I created about 5 months ago for my private clients, and then I decided there was a big enough need for it that I re-recorded it about a month or so ago. So it's now free. Happy to share that. Okay, looking at the time. For those of you who dropped in late, we have a ton of questions today. So Jasper and Jeremy, if you joined, type your question in because I wasn't clear exactly what we were trying to accomplish. All right, Jason, how do you get clients or customers to pay more when they say, I thought you already were taking care of that. Isn't that what we pay you for? Okay, so this is probably the biggest objection I get, and I'm big into sales. So you can see me I'm like all excited. I love objections. I actually I have a Facebook Live that I'm going to do on this in a couple of weeks, so you'll get a sneak peek into this. Objections feel like your clients just threw up this magical like shield, and now there's nothing you can do to get through and make the sale. In reality, an objection is simply their way, the client or the prospect's way of saying, I don't understand this. You didn't explain this well. There's still doubt in my mind. And so it's really revealing, you could say where you fell down on the job, but what it's really revealing is a sense of trust, because they are saying, listen, I know you have my best interest at heart, but I don't understand why I need to pay you more when I'm already paying you $1,000. I'm a 10 user person and you're charging me $100 per month. I'm already paying you $1,000. I thought this is what I was paying you for. I'm working through the book called Gap Selling. And if you are at all a sales junkie, that was a new book to me. It's been out for a while. Highly recommend. I'm listening to it on Audible. I'm not technically reading it. It's actually my first Audible book. I guess I'm late to the audio world. But he explains this concept that your clients are at point A and you're trying to get them to point B. And if they don't believe there is a gap, they will never buy. So the problem is they're way over at point B where they're not protected and they're not safe, but they think they're over here. They think they're good. They think life is grand, and you probably use the term all you can eat, and they think they have antivirus and a firewall, and so they're good. And so now you're trying to sell them something that has no value. You have to build the gap. Okay, so when you build the gap, you're going to explain the vulnerabilities, what it means to them as a client. So this is what it means to you as a dentist if this happens. This is what it means to you as a manufacturing plant. And when you build that gap, then the conversation becomes, you're only paying to be at point A. And things have changed. And I get that we all hate change. I hate change as well. I really candidly wish I could keep doing business as usual, because I have spent the last 6 months or year, or I've dedicated hundreds of hours to learning about what the problems are and how to solve them. And I wish I didn't have to do that. I wish technology didn't change. But the reality is today, you're actually over here. There's actually a gap that you're not aware of. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because you're sleeping like a baby when I'm up at night very uneasy because I know just how vulnerable you are. And the reality is that you're paying for something that kept you safe a year ago. And it's not 2019 anymore, it's 2020. So there is a gap. You establish the gap and you're like, and the only way to bridge it is to put additional measures in place. That's the bad news. The good news is I found some really great solutions that are small business friendly in terms of budget, in terms of functionality, and we need to bridge the gap, because all these things that I just told you could happen to you cannot happen to you. And I think we've agreed to that. So we've got to put some additional pieces in place. So that's the kind of short, long answer. You're not paying for this already. You're paying for protection that kept you safe last year, and it's not last year anymore. Okay. Mark, how to get the appointment with the prospect. I don't know if you're on. I don't think you're on. This is such a broad question. How to get the appointment with the prospect. Are you cold calling? Are you talking to them in a networking event? Are you sending an email campaign or a mailed campaign, and now you're doing follow-up calls? So this is so broad. Again, I kind of wish you were on live just so I could unpack this a little bit. But again, if we go back to the gap selling concept or the value-based selling, a prospect's most valuable time or most valuable commodity is their time. And if you're asking them for an appointment that takes 2 hours, again, making this up, I don't know your sales cycle or your sales process, but if you're asking them for 2 hours of their time, let's just step back for a second, okay? If I asked you for 2 hours of your time, what would I have to convince you of that I could deliver in that 2 hours in order for it to be worth 2 hours of your time? Because you probably have to book me into next week or the week after, possibly with a shoehorn, in order to find a 2-hour consecutive block that you can put me in and have any high degree of probability that you can show up. So there has to be a problem that you're offering to solve in order to get in the door for the prospect and to take up their valuable time. So I'm not trying to hedge the question, but the answer is, how do you get an appointment? Well, you have to know what their problem is and have a way of solving it or walking closer to a solution in that appointment. And so that's high level because the question is a little bit vague. Mark, if you listen to the recording, happy to answer it. Just maybe make it a little bit more specific, give me a little more context. And I've got a date scheduled for the February webinar, and we can hop on and answer it then. All right. Okay, how do you get small business owners to care about cybersecurity? We've taken the full risk management approach from a financial business impact perspective. We've explained regulatory obligations, HIPAA, GLBA, et cetera. They still don't seem to care. They're well informed. However, the only businesses where this type of conversation resonates are the ones who have had a significant security incident. So, if you are multitasking, I want to pull you back for just a second, because this is a pretty nuanced question, and the answer will be a little nuanced as well. So I want you to pay attention to the end. The only businesses where this type of conversation resonates are the ones who have had a significant security incident. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys to participate. So why do people who have had a security incident, why does this risk management conversation resonate with them? And I'm going to ask you to type it in the chat, because I feed off of the energy of you. And right now, a lot of you are multitasking, which I respect. I know clients come first, employees knock on your door. I get this. But I want you to type in the chat. And I am super comfortable with silence. So I'll wait for at least one or two of you to answer. Why is it that when a company has had a significant security incident, ransomware, a breach, the FBI knocks on their door and says, surprise, we're taking all your records. Why is it that those companies can resonate with the risk management conversation, and now they're willing to spend money on it? And I can wait, because I'm just that obnoxious. Nobody's typing. Why is it that a client who's had a breach is all of a sudden open to the conversation? Okay, so somebody said now they feel like it can happen to them. Okay, we got another, now they, yeah, okay, so similar vein. They can't say it'll never happen to me. Perfect. Okay, the vulnerability now becomes real. So we've kind of brought it from the abstract. It's kind of hard to say, I don't believe my house will ever burn down when I'm sitting there looking at the smoldering ruins. Okay, good. So what is super important is to understand that the people who have had a cyber incident, they feel it. They feel vulnerable. They feel violated. That is often the word that they use. They feel violated. They feel unsafe. They feel like it came out of left field. They had no idea it could happen to them. Okay? That's important, because though a buying decision never happens in a vacuum. 100% of buying decisions happen emotionally. We always make buying decisions emotionally. Even in the IT world, where you guys hide behind the facade of not having any emotions, y'all have emotions. You do, because I actually am able to pull them out of my conversations one-on-one. So in a networking group, you're tough and you've got this sometimes sarcastic external brick wall, and that's good. It's a defense mechanism. It's fine. I'm not criticizing at all. But even IT guys have emotions. You guys, a lot of you have a heart of gold. That's why you got into IT, because you wanted to solve the world's problems. So you've got emotions, but you've buried them. Well, your clients have too. And so you have to have them feel the vulnerability. You have to have them feel how it would impact their business. The mistake I see a lot, I actually did a rant about this yesterday. I don't know if you saw it or not, but the mistake a lot of you are making is you are leading with tech. You're leading with your head, because you're very excited by the geeky stuff. And so you're leading with ransomware protection and AI and artificial intelligence. So that is redundant, math-based and machine-based and all of this stuff. And your clients don't care. So what I want you to do is help them. It's not, there was something else in here. They are well informed. Okay, now maybe I'm reading too much into this, but what I'm seeing is we've educated them. That's half the battle. But what you need to do is have them feel what it would be. And so, all right, let's educate you. I'm looking at the clock because this could take a few minutes, but let's educate you. Hey, Mr. Client, let me educate you about what ransomware is. And ransomware is actually a reportable issue with HIPAA. Okay, so this ties into Michael's question from HIPAA. So do you know what ransomware is? No, I don't. Well, here's what ransomware is. Bad guy gets in, how they get in. It could be your employee clicks on a link. It could be that they enter through whatever. And now all of your data is encrypted. Do you know what encrypted means? No, I don't. Well, it means all your data is scrambled. Oh, that seems bad. Okay, thank you for educating me, Mr. MSP. That's education. It's important, but it's only half the battle, because let's go to the next step, okay? Oh, awesome. Ransomware. That's great. Thanks for educating me. Okay, so hold on. Let's stop for a second though. Mr. Client, let's unpack what that means to you. You know, I've been your IT company for a long time, or I just became your IT company a few months ago. What I've noticed, I'm going to pretend like you're a spa. Okay, the client is a spa. What I've noticed is you have a lot of foot traffic. How many clients do you see in an hour? Oh, we see 30 clients an hour. Okay, so are you open 8 hours? No, we're open 10. Okay, great. That's easier math, right? 10 times 8. So you see 80 clients. It's probably low, but let's just go with it, right? So you see 80 clients an hour. What's the average ticket? It's $100. So do that math for me. What if you were down for a day? What would that do? Oh, wait, so I would be down? Well, yeah, because everything's, I mean, all your data is encrypted. You can't launch software tools. You can't open documents. So do you see how I'm taking what is second nature to you and I? Everything's encrypted, and I'm unpacking for them. Well, what does everything mean? How does it impact their business? Wait, so I can't accept payments? Nope, you sure can't. For how long? Well, the average ransomware takes a company down for X amount of time, but it could be a week or two. Well, wait, but I thought I had backups. Well, you do, but it takes a while to get back up and running as well. Oh, okay, so now that's implication number one. I can't process payments. So let me ask you a question. I know you call your clients and you remind them, hey, you need to come in tomorrow for your pedicure. Sure. You can't access your CRM. Why not? Because all your data is encrypted. You can't open up that tool. Wait a second. So I can't see who's coming in tomorrow? You sure can't. So I can't remind them to come in? Nope. So hold on. Let me ask you, how many of those clients are going to forget? Well, that's going to be 30%. Oh, so 30% of 80 means you've now lost this revenue because they won't even remember to come back in. Yeah. Okay, so now we've got implication number two. You can't call and make confirmation appointments. Okay, now your phones are ringing off the hook. Let's assume phones are still working. They may or may not be working. Wait a minute. Why would my phone not be working? Well, and so now we've got potential implication number three. The phones may not be working. Implication number four. Let's step back. Let's say the phones are working. Someone calls. They're a bridal party. They want to book their 7 people for massages and pedicures and manicures the day before the wedding. You can't book them because you can't get into your appointment settings. Like, oh, all of a sudden you've taken this education, ransomware, and you've turned it into a business making opportunity, a revenue opportunity, because now they get, and that's just 4 implications. We could keep going and going and going. I picked a salon because it's a little abstract, but you pick everybody has to process payment. Everybody has to be able to answer their phone. Everybody has to be able to make money tomorrow, which for the spa is confirming appointments. For somebody else, it could be submitting RFPs. But start to break down all of their business functions: hiring, firing, making money, making the widget out in their manufacturing facility, whatever that is. And we've taken this technical thing, which in my case was ransomware, but you can go broader, and said, this is what we're protecting you from. So now all of a sudden we've not just educated, we've helped them see why that education is so important. They're now educated, but they're feeling it. And if they don't buy immediately, you've now triggered them and they're staying up at night and they're worried, which is exactly where you want to be. You want to engage those emotions. Okay, I know that was long, but there was a lot to unpack. Okay, Best ways to position cybersecurity to a business owner who knows nothing about it. Awesome. All right, so Susan, kind of similar to my last answer. Educate, use words they can understand, but then tie it to how this is going to impact their company and why clearly we need to keep this from happening. So short answer, but only because it tied into the last one. Hey, I'm making progress. Awesome. All right, we have about 15, 20 minutes left. I have 3 questions. So now I'm going to say, if you have questions, go ahead and type them in the Zoom chat. I usually say that at the beginning, but that list, as you can see, that list was long. Okay, how to properly price an offering. Great. You can tell we've got some redundancy, which is awesome. So Brian, price it for profitability. The only limiter on how high you should go is your ability to close the sale. So how much is too much? The point that you can't close the sale. So that's why this is all related to your salesmanship and your sales ability and your saleswomanship if you're female. So how to properly price it so that it's highly profitable. And secondly, so that you can sell it. And so the danger is when you're not good at the sales, you lower your margins so that you can close the sale. I don't love that approach because I like beefy margins because you guys are low to begin with and you're probably not compensating yourself enough. You probably haven't given yourself a raise in way too many months or years. And so cybersecurity is a way to fix a lot of evil. Not just the hacker kind of evil, but the financial and in your pocket kind of evil. So that's that. Well, hold on. Let me make sure. Yeah, that was Brian's. Okay. Susan. Okay. This is really broad, and I don't think you're on sales and marketing techniques in lead gen. Okay. Again, I kind of wish you were on and I could, I wish I could unmute you, but you're not on, so it doesn't work. All right, so lead gen, again, I could probably do a hour-long seminar on lead gen. Lead gen, again, is about being in front of the right prospect at the right time when they're interested in something that you're offering. A good lead generation might be at this time a security assessment or a vulnerability assessment, or perhaps 15 things every small business owner in your city needs to be doing, and it's a cheat sheet or a checklist or a white paper. So that's your lead generation, and then once they're that brings them in the top of your funnel, and then you're going to nurture them, and eventually they will fall out the bottom as a sale. That's high level because I'm not 100% clear on what your question is, or even what's the problem that we're trying to solve. So Susan, if you watch the recording, pop that question in or jump on the Facebook group and just be a little bit more specific, and I will do my best to answer that. Brent. Best way to provide clarity to a client on performing a site assessment along with the value it will provide or produce. Our goal is to provide the vulnerabilities along with the solution. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of separate this into 2 so that I can kind of touch on these differently. The best way to provide clarity to a client on performing a site assessment along with the value it will produce. So if I rephrase this as a question, how do I'm guessing, how do I convince the client that they should let me perform a site assessment? So I'm assuming this is a paying client. I'm assuming you want to charge them for a site assessment because otherwise there wouldn't be any kind of a convincing process that needs to happen. So I'm reading between the lines. Hopefully I'm reading between the lines accurately. What's the best way to provide clarity along with the value it will provide? So I think what you are saying is, how do I articulate to the client why they should pay me for a site assessment, which is value? I mean, the answer is value. Okay, so in other words, you're going to do the site assessment. It's going to reveal vulnerabilities. Then what you want to do is explain, here are the implications to your company based on the vulnerabilities I found. You're lucky these things haven't happened yet. lawsuit, loss of contracts, identity theft of your employees, compromised productivity, loss of intellectual property. So the way you're going to sell them is these things could be existing right now in your network. And because we've never done a vulnerability assessment, we don't have any visibility into them. So they are essentially invisible threats. And what I'm doing is, I wouldn't say it this way, but I'll say it to you guys because I think we're all just a little bit geeky. We're going to turn the invisible visible. You know, you can probably find a superhero analogy that like there are probably gaps right now. I need to do this site assessment or vulnerability assessment or security assessment to reveal those gaps. I'll explain them to you in plain English that will impact you as a business owner. I promise not to speak geek. And then if these are solutions that we can, if these are gaps that we can bridge, I'll present you with a result of findings and how we can fix these things. So our goal is to provide the vulnerabilities along with a solution. Okay, so I think we're on the same page. The challenge is you don't want to provide the vulnerabilities like this. We found open RDP ports. There's two problems with that. Number one, they don't know what an open RDP port is and they don't know why they should care. And number two, you need to be really careful because they're going to say, well, then fix it. That's what I pay you for, right? And so when you present the vulnerabilities, number one, you can't do it from a technical standpoint. And number two, you need to be very clear that they are over here at A, and this is not something they paid for. And so therefore, we need to get you over here to B, and it's something you have to pay for. And so I know that's high level. There's a lot of nuance there. But hopefully that will answer your question. Whew. Lots of questions. I know we still have some people on. So if there are still questions in your mind, ask them, type them into the chat. I'm going to wait for just a second and I've got a little tickle coming, so I'm going to mute. Hold on one second. I thought I unmuted. Hopefully now you can hear me. You guys are awesome. Thank you. The joys of live webinars. Thank you guys. Philip, you're awesome. You've been like Johnny on the spot. We're going to change your name to Johnny. Okay, so I've been fighting bronchitis, so thank you guys for putting up with me sipping my cold coffee from time to time. All right, so those are all the submitted questions. I'm watching. This is the joy of trying to watch the chat. I've got that on a different monitor. Do not know what I would do without my 2.5 monitors. So let me warn you of something. Knowledge is fabulous, and I just brain dumped a ton of stuff on you. And I'll be honest, this is one of my favorite parts of what I do is just being able to get in and solve these type of problems, because I get emails later saying, that was super helpful, thanks. Here's the danger. It can feel like you now have everything you need to go to market with cybersecurity. And the reality is there's a limit to what I can pack into an hour Ask Me Anything webinar. And there's a limit to what questions I get. So I have to speak to those questions as well. Here's the deal. If you have not sold cybersecurity to 100% of your clients, or if you have presented cybersecurity and lost a deal, the client said no, the client said I need to think about it, the client said talk to me about it in 6 months, then you need my help. Okay, I don't want to mince words. This is not a heavy sales pitch. If you don't want to hear what I do, you can bail. It's fine. But I believe that if you are on this webinar, it's because you are serious about penetrating the cybersecurity market. Now, I told you early on, my vision, what I believe success looks like is a really solid stack with the best tools you can get today, priced correctly to make up for some of the I've been stealing from my own pocket kind of a thing that I know happens in this industry. So priced profitably, where 100% of your clients have bought it. And I don't mean you went out and you did a half-hearted sales pitch. They said no, you fired them. Therefore, you got rid of the client that said no. I mean, you pitch cybersecurity to all of your existing clients and 80 to 100% of them buy, and you've got reasonable certainty that the other 20% will be buying in the next 3 months. I know that's a high standard, but that's what it should be. So stack, profitability, 100% of your existing clients have your stack. 100% of prospects have your stack, and you are seen in your area as the go-to cybersecurity expert. If any of that resonates with you, I would love to get on a phone call and see if I can help you. Go to mspsalesrevolution.com/apply. Get on my calendar. I literally am booking into next week. I think I've got a decent number of slots for next week. This week, I could not get you in if you paid me $1 million. Actually, if you paid me $1 million, I'd figure out a way to get you in. But I am shoehorning in people like nobody's business, including the evenings, which I try to not do. So if you are looking to penetrate your market and you need a proven path to scale this cybersecurity mountain, please reach out to me. Again, mspsalesrevolution.com/apply. You can also go to mspsalesrevolution.com/hero if you want to become a cybersecurity hero. It's the same page, but I did have someone that had an issue with apply last week, so that makes me a little bit uneasy. I've not been able to reproduce the problem. Gotta love technology. I'm going to hold for another minute. I'm actually amazed. I want to count up how many questions that is. I'm like totally bragging rights that I got through that many questions in 50 minutes, 51 minutes. I will hold on for another minute or two. If no questions come into the chat, then I will give you guys back 8 minutes of your day. So if you have a question, type hold on and I will wait. Otherwise, I'm going to let you go in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, not seeing any frantic hold on things. If I missed it, ping me in the Facebook group. If you're not in the Facebook group, please join. Would love to have you. Thank you guys for coming. Watch your email. You'll get a recording. And in about a week or so, I will let you know when the date is for the February. Ask me anything because I know you will have questions then as well. That's it for now. Have a great Thursday. Pretty sure it's Thursday. It has been that kind of a week. Have a great Thursday. Let me know if I can help in any way. Thanks, guys.